At this year's World Series of Poker, we saw a mix of players like we do every year. And just like every other year, everyone comes into the event with a different view as to what the best strategy is. Some players look to steal lots of pots before the flop by betting large amounts in order to win it early, while other players, they look to play small pots before the flop in order to try to win big pots by trying to take advantage of their opponent's mistakes after the flop. There are pros and cons to both strategies. Being a dead money player means that you risk big amounts in order to win a small pot. It's a highly effective strategy in that it's going to work a high percentage of the time, but when you are wrong, it can be really costly. Let's take a look at a typical play a dead money player may make. With blinds of 1 in 200 and a 25 ante, 3 players limp into the pot. The small blind calls as well, and now it's up to our dead money player in the big blind. Now there's already 1,225 in the pot. The dead money player will often see this as an opportunity to steal it. Since no one raised before the flop, he may pounce on that weakness with a big raise. The key to the play's success is gauging whether or not the first limper is setting a trap with a big hand. Generally, the other limpers would have raised if they had a premium hand, so if you can get by the first caller, you should be home free. The other key consideration is the amount of the raise, and it's also what makes the play risky, you see. You have to make a substantial raise to force your opponents out. Making it 600 or 800, that's just not going to cut it because the limpers are going to call. In order to take the pot right there, you're probably going to have to risk about 1,500. 1,500 to win 1,225 isn't a bad investment. If you win the pot 2 out of 3 times, you'll make a tidy profit. Notice, I never mentioned what hand the big blind held. Reason being, simply doesn't matter. You can make this play with deuce 7 offsuit, and many top professionals will do just that if they think the moment is right. Now, while that play will help you stay alive and keep your chips from dwindling in a tournament, there's another approach to building your chips by risking fewer chips in the hopes of winning more. Let's look at an example of how a small ball player would look to build chips. With the blind still at 100, 200, and 25 ante, the small ball player will look to attack a pot that no one has entered yet, preferably from late position. The hand doesn't matter much at all, but being suited and or connected helps a lot. For this example, let's say the small ball player has 6-8 of hearts. Rather than just call or make a large raise to steal the blinds, the small ball player might raise to just 500, almost inviting the player in the big blind to call. More often than not, that's exactly what's going to happen, and the pot would now have about 1325 in it. Now the flop comes ace of spade, 9 of club, and a deuce. The big blind's often going to check, and this is where the small ball player will bet despite having nothing at all. A bet of about 800 should do the trick and force the big blind to fold. Unless, of course, the big blind happens to have a pair of aces or better, in which case the small ball player is forced to abort mission. The other benefits to the small ball approach come into play when the 6-8 of hearts actually gets lucky and hits a good flop. If the flop were to come, say, 5-7-9, there's just no way that any player could figure you for a straight at that point. If that opponent had 2 pair trips or even an overpair, the trap would be set and the small ball player would be looking for a big payday. Both tricks are useful, but the dead money approach has little upside. It's a play that can be used sparingly, but it won't ever win you a big pot. With the small ball approach, you can accomplish 2 things. 1, continue to build your stack slowly, and 2, have the opportunity to hit a big flop and double up.